What's going on, everyone? Man, season 8, episode 24, we've reached the end. And as you can see, I'm still in my new studio. We just moved. So thank you guys for all the wishes and warm congratulations for our new home. I appreciate that. Um, Guys, I am so excited for today's episode. It's going to be a little bit different. Today's episode is another special guest. They're rare, but we save them for people who we believe are a very special tie to the Southwestern culture and the alumni population that it created. To us, there's things about the experience in selling books that just really stand out or that we will always take with us. Things like knocking on the door, stepping back, and turning sideways, all the way to the tie in that our guest today has to our culture. I am speaking with Dave Blanchard today. Dave is the CEO of the Og Mandino Leadership Institute, which basically means they are their institute is the people behind the ownership rights and everything that's all the projects that they're doing with the Og Mandino's lineup of greatest salesmen in the world books. So if you haven't read them, and maybe you're someone who didn't sell books and you don't know what the heck we're talking about, Og Mandino wrote a book. We'll talk all about it here on the episode, but essentially it became a very inspirational source of value to our people who are going door to door selling educational books for Southwestern. So this is a very important part of the culture. There are things that we quote from the book that book people know and who really just maintain it and keep that legacy going with Og Mandino. In fact, the story of this podcast surrounds Og Mandino. It came from the scroll within the book called "I Will Persist Until I Succeed." And if you guys have listened to the show, you know exactly what this is about. I'll probably tell Dave about it here on our conversation. But just wanted to let you know a little bit about Dave. Let me pull up here. So he is an author, and more than that, he's a renaissance man of business. He has an extraordinary background in sales, management, networking, commercial and residential real estate, television, and film. I'm excited to talk about all of those things with him. And he he was an all-conference middle linebacker in high school, a free safety at Ricks College, and of course, never been afraid to hit the real issues head on. And he does that with extreme and extraordinary clarity and accuracy. In 2000, so 23 years ago, Unique Door opened and a new chapter, a new mission in his life commenced after being inspired by the feature film script that Dave wrote for one of the Og books. Betty Mandino, Og's widow, contacted him and offered him the film rights to The Greatest Salesman in the World. A few years later, while working through a pretty traumatic dark night, this book, which includes the 10 scrolls, had a profound impact on Dave's life. I'm sure we'll hear about that story in more detail. It for sure was in his. I read his book, and there was a lot of details in there as well. I'm excited to talk about that. But he was ecstatic by getting those rights, and by the time that Betty and Dave finished their conversation, Dave would not only run with the film rights, he would create the company that focused on bringing Og's principles into the 21st century. The decision planted the seeds for what is now known the Og Mandino Leadership Institute. Man, I have had a couple conversations with Dave about what they're up to and the future plans of Og Mandino's work. And oh man, I am so excited to have you guys hear all about it. Hopefully you guys enjoy this episode. Make sure you guys follow us, subscribe to our newsletter. And if you have more questions, there's going to be a link below that you can go and find if you want to find Dave's books, or if you want to go to visit the website, or if you want to find a way to inquire more, you can click on the links below. It'll direct you to where you need to go to be able to reach out. So, but when I come back, I'll be on with Dave. See you guys in a second. Hello, hello.
Great to be with you this morning.
Oh man, Dave, I'm so excited. When we booked this, I've been looking forward to this for a month now. I feel like it's been since the last time we talked, and wow, it's an honor to have you here. So thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you, Andres. Congratulations on
Oh,
your house. How exciting.
thanks. Oh man, it's a wonderful thing to be a homeowner. It's scary, but it's first time, so I'm sure we'll see some of the challenges and some of the rewards. Um, Man, let me just dig in. Let's dig in
Like-
really quick.
You like it better at tax time. Maybe not
That's
when the
what
hot water heater breaks, but at tax time, it'll be okay.
Oh yes, that's what the funny thing is it's a new build. So we were like, okay, we have like 5 to 7 years before something really goes bad. So let's just save up as much as we can, because sure enough, something's gonna happen if we're gonna have to replace it. Oh, so excited. Um, I wanna dig in a little bit. Let's just start, I guess, where we're at right now and how we came across each other and kind of like why we felt that this would be a great idea. And then we can kind of roll the clock back a little bit and kind of catch up to how we got to this point. But for those of you who don't know, we reached out to Og Mandino. Well, at the time it was just called the website. It just said Og Mandino Foundation, but Og Mandino Leadership Institute. So we got in touch with them. We wanted to see what they were up to now. We discovered that this was a thing when we looked up, what's Og Mandino, how many books he wrote. We started looking into Og since he was such a big part of our culture. Came across your assistant, and then that was like last September. So this has actually been in the works for a while. And you Christmas holidays came around, and we had a conversation about a month ago about what's going on currently with the script and all the stuff that's happening with the book. So let's just pick up from there. Before I butcher it, that story, let me just ask you: can you catch us up on what's been like the last month like for you with this huge project that you've taken on?
Well, it's been 23 years coming.
Yeah,
And we always believed that when we found the right partner, it would just kind of unfold. And that's how it's been happening. Angel Studios, responsible for The Chosen, which has been a phenomenal success, is looking for projects similar to that can come behind The Chosen and take advantage of their success so far. And they've been talking to us for a couple of years. And about 6 months ago, it got very intense. And I can report to everyone that there's a contract in place now for Angel Studios to create a 3-year series about the 10 scrolls. It won't be a movie. They've proven through The Chosen that this serial, episodic kind of an approach is really the best to be able to communicate the message in great detail. Um, we're going through a process. Angel Studios has you produce um, a torch, like this is basically the story from the Statue of Liberty. The torch was built, they raised the rest of the money for the rest of the statue. We do a torch that goes through their jury. We've already been assured that because they're putting some of their own money into the production of the torch itself, which is used for crowdfunding. They do a crowdfund for about $5 million, and that launches the first 4 episodes. And then they fund the remaining episodes for the first year. And then after the first year, you continue into the second and the third based on the success of the first year. So we're just finishing up the little bit of fundraising that's necessary to cover the torch. And I don't know what's legal, but I
sure.
just know if anybody's interested in being a part of that, they should let us know to have a conversation with proper disclosure, et cetera. It's a really fun place for an investor to be at that
Yeah.
point in the project because early on there's a much larger percentage for investors. So we're very excited about that. I'm one of them.
Well, it,
It's great. So we'll get that taken care of in the next probably couple of months, and the plan is to go into production and to release the first season in 2024. So that's
wow,
yeah.
that's so cool. so
It's so
so
cool to think about this. Those familiar with the greatest salesman in the world, you have Hafid the camel boy and all of that leading up to receiving the scrolls. Then you come back to Hafid and he's an older man and he's the greatest salesman in the world and giving 50% of his profits to the poor of the city. And now he's going to give it away to his friends and to the city, etc. And you're going, okay, what happened? Because in between are the 10 scrolls. And we have absolute license to create the stories around how Hafid used those very principles to create the success he had later in life. And it's going to be replete with, I'm writing it with Alan Peterson, dear friend of mine. We're writing the episodes together. And it's interesting because we're bringing a lot, because nothing's changed in history. People still try to rip you off
mhm,
and partnerships
yeah.
don't work. And all that stuff's going to happen as he's applying these principles in his life. And I think it's going to be just a delightful series, very uplifting, something that'll bring some light into your family as it relates to these 10 scrolls. We're very excited to have that much openness and 3 years to introduce the scrolls. So that's where we
Incredible. That's amazing. And uh I guess first off, from a standpoint of knowing the value that the scrolls can provide to people, knowing the value that, I mean, heck, one scroll, just having one person read one scroll for a month, which is what you're supposed to do, just the impact that they can have. You put this so candidly in your book. You wrote that well, and I wanted to ask you a little about this too. But the
are.
Og wrote the scrolls overnight, or like it was like one take, and he just let them like he just let them out and it came out. And
Mhm.
when you said, and I'm gonna misquote it, but something along the lines of, he didn't leave anything out and he didn't oversay anything. It was like a perfect, almost like a poetic, just everything that needed to be said is said, and it was amazing.
Yeah, you think about this. Here he is. He's got a book deal with Felt Publishing, and it's got a deadline, and he's got the beginning written and the end written, and he's got to deliver the 10 time-tested principles of success. I mean, there's no pressure on a writer, right? He has no idea what to write, and he struggles with this for months. And he finally took a couple of days off of work, and he struggled for 2 days. And the last day, he went in and read with his boys and had prayer with the two of them, and then he went and laid down on the bed. And when he's lying there, it came to him. And as a writer, and you're a writer, Andrew, so you know when this happens. It
Yeah.
just, today I begin a new life. Today I shed my old skin, which had too long suffered the bruises of failure, the wounds of mediocrity. Day I'm born anew, in my birthplace is a vineyard where there's fruit for all. But he said he just leapt out of bed, went into his study, pulled out a piece of paper, IBM Selectric typewriter. I mean, this wasn't cut and paste computer time. He started typing, and he says it was like taking dictation for the next 12 hours. And at 9 o'clock the next morning, he walked into the bedroom and said, "It's done," and collapsed on the bed and slept for a day. And the scrolls were written. Now, I've
Wow.
seen some of the original manuscripts. it,
Wow.
it is amazing. There's a little bit of, tape change and a word or two. But when you think about when we write, cut and paste and move around, he just wrote them. He was trying to keep up with it all night long. And the only scroll Betty made him rewrite was scroll number 2. When he says the greatest secret of success in all ventures is love, he was talking about agape love. Now,
Yes.
Og was a voracious reader. Eros, Pia, Philo, agape. The Greeks, we go, love you, brother. Love you, sweetheart. It's the same word with just different inflection. In Greek, it's erotic love, maternal love, brotherly love, and this agape love, which is a heightened level of awareness. It makes the scroll come alive. But he had to simplify it for 1967 when he wrote it, published in 68. He says, muscle can split a shield and even destroy life. The shield is love. It can crack love. The life that it steals is passion and purpose and mission. But only the unseen power. We can skip past unseen so quickly, but it is unseen power of agape love that will open the heart. And until we master this art, we're no more than a peddler in the marketplace. I just delivered training to 625 people on a sales team for the last 4 weeks, finished last night. And that was the premise of the sales team. This crunch and grind and hunt versus loving. You hunt someone, they feel hunted. You love someone, they feel loved. Actually listening, paying attention, actually caring about someone, something that can't be faked, opens the heart. And I can tell you right now, Andrews, I think you agree with me. In the world we live
Yeah.
in today, the real secrets to why someone would do something are deep inside the pain inside their own heart. And if we don't get there, we're just a peddler in the marketplace. I mean, that was 1967. It applies so crazy today. But Og rewrote the scroll 2. And the only way scroll 2 comes alive for you is to actually live the principle. As
Yeah.
you're doing them, you go, oh, that's what he meant. And how we do this? Only one way. look at everything with love and I'll be renewed. You know, I love the rain for it cleanses my soul, but the sun because it cleanses my bones. I love the rain because it cleanses my soul. I love the light for it shows me the way. I love the darkness for it shows me the stars. And you think, just ponder this for a moment with me. The stars. How often does the sunlight of success obscure the stars in our lives? Because mythologically, he's writing a multi-thousand-year-old document, right? That had been passed on down to
Yeah.
Pathos and then to him. The stars mythologically were diamonds, the diamonds in our lives. Just a really quick story. I remember when we were driving away from our house in California, the world had fallen apart economically. It's just awful. And I saw my children and my wife in a 12-passenger van jumping up and down, singing a song. I'm pulling out of the driveway in a Ryder truck with tears streaming down my cheeks because we're leaving our dream home. And I thought, wow, I have been pursuing success. And the sun was really bright. Didn't see those stars, didn't see those diamonds. He said, that's what we do. And then you go, oh, you mean our life experiences have prepared us uniquely to love. Oh, now it's starting to make sense. But you actually have to live the scrolls. And that one in particular, because that one was cut almost in half in its length. But
Really?
other than that, there's not an edit in the scrolls. They are the way
Wow.
they came out that night. And
Wow.
if you read
Okay.
it all 45 minutes, it takes about 45 minutes to get through them. You go, how in the world did that much wisdom come? And you just have to pause and go, maybe there's a power greater than us in the universe. Just maybe, huh? Just maybe.
There's evidence.
And he got the download. He had a hard time promoting the book because he said, I just took dictation. I didn't write this. I just took dictation.
That's so, I mean, it's inspiring. And, when you speak of sometimes you write, you're writing and you can tell, and sometimes it's just something else. You're just the copper wire and the message is the current, right? And wherever it's going, you don't really know, but your job is to just let that current through as best as you can. Be the best copper wire that you can be. Um,
Can I
oh
tell you
man. So
just really
yeah, yes,
equanimity,
please.
the third book. I write between 4 and 8 when I'm writing a book because 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. is the only time I've got. It does terrible things on sleep
Well,
and diet and everything else, but it's 4:30 and I just had this massive download. I had several days like you described where it's like I wrote in spite of the fact nothing was coming of value. That's how it felt. But you just write. That's what you do. Writers write. And that morning, it's like, move this over here, move that over there, move this over here. Slow down, slow down, slow down. When I got
comes
done,
out.
I went, Lord, why me? And Andrus, I got to tell you, I wanted him to say, because you're brilliant. And he said, because you'll listen and you'll act courageously on what I say. And I was a little disappointed.
Mm,
But the truth is, writers hear. And when they
mm,
courageously write what they hear, marvelous things can be on a page. 10
yeah.
scrolls, for an example. Yeah.
Yeah, those 10 scrolls. Okay. What's up, everybody? We're getting off schedule for a quick second to spotlight a jockey of ours. Cardinal Seated Benefits helps families who have old people in their life and they're going to die. So they help them with final expense insurance. And it's pretty badass. So back to work. Well, I have so many questions. I have so many follow-up questions. But so let me just clarify and kind of recap. So the people that made The Chosen and just are investing in you and Peter. I didn't catch the last name. Where the other person that's writing it with you?
The Chosen is its own entity unto itself. Angel
Right.
Studios is responsible
Yeah.
for the making and marketing of it, but the company behind the marketing
Yeah.
and the studio,
Of The Chosen.
like Universal Studios, Universal Studios may do a famous movie. It's not the movie behind it; it's the
Right.
studio that's behind it. That studio
Right.
wants their next success
Yeah.
story.
So The Chosen is its own separate show. By the way, I've seen The Chosen, not entirely. I think I'm through season one with my wife. We're watching it together. Great. So the production quality, the acting, the setting. I mean, it's really really well done. We're talking big time studio is taking the scrolls, and they ask you and a friend to write the episodes for this series. It'll be a series about what the and I don't know, actually, to be honest with you, if people haven't read the full, I mean, some people only read the scrolls, but
Mhm.
if people haven't read that full book, it's really great. The whole book is great, but basically it's going to be how this person learns. Hafid is the name of the character, learns these scrolls. So this has been 23 years in the making. You said you've been trying to do this from a film production standpoint, and I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. Just go back a little bit in time here, and
Mhm.
what does it take to like go from okay, we have these squirrels, we have this right to these squirrels, to we're gonna make it into a script, the adapting it and just making sure everything's in the right place. What's that process look like?
It's much like writing a book, and you know what that feels like.
Yeah.
You're really giving birth to something because you're taking a book and you want to be true to the story, to all the correct elements without deviating, and you also have to make it interesting for an audience. I had written the feature film script because I wanted to make a movie. In today's world, and they use the word monetize. I hope everybody's okay with that. Monetizing the asset, the serial, the episodic serial seems to be the very best way to do it, and the best way to go really deep into the material. You think about The Chosen; it's about 45 to 50 minutes an episode. If you were a little bit longer, in 3 years, you'd be watching a 30-hour movie. You can't do that in a movie. You might have
Yeah.
2 hours, hour and a half to 2.5 hours max. I mean, you really have to crunch things down. In an episodic series, you can develop things.
Hmm.
It's so awesome because the first 3 episodes are all about Hafid, and he's the camel boy, and Pathros gives him a robe to go sell to prove himself, and he ends up giving it to baby Jesus in the manger. He
Yeah.
comes back feeling like a failure, but that was the sign Pathros was looking for to give him the 10 scrolls. He sends him off with the 10 scrolls. He goes to the city and he has quite an experience. And then the book leaves us, and now we're into original material related to the scrolls. And we're not going to go
Mhm.
sequentially through them. We're going to pull from them as we need them. And then the last few episodes will be what happens later on when Paul
Wow.
shows up with the robe, gives it back to Hafid, and it's kind of the bookend of the whole process. Um,
Amazing.
yeah, it is amazing, and it's so
Um,
fun to be in the space because it's like, okay, Og, what do you want us to do with this? You're just
yeah.
looking for the same downloads, the same flow that you look for when you're writing a book, except for you've got
Mhm.
this gem of a principle.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you what, I've studied the scrolls since 1996. I've never studied them like this.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
We're into the nuances because you look at The Chosen, they can make an entire episode on a nuance from one sentence in the Bible. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Give you a whole backstory that's plausible, that just makes it so relatable. We're doing the same thing with some of those very powerful principles, the unseen power of love.
Yeah.
You're going to witness that on the screen, what that looks like.
That
Yeah.
is so cool. And I'm glad that you mentioned this. This is true. I mean, we've seen this because of Netflix, because of HBO, right? We've seen this trend of TV series weren't as
No.
common, but 20 years ago. It was all movies, movies, movies. And then they started doing sequels, right? With the first, the second, the third. It wasn't until Netflix really that people found out that TV series were better Not just monetarily, that doesn't really, I mean, that's important, but it's not the reason always. It's just from a storytelling standpoint, it's not the main reason. It's the ability to develop characters, to develop situations, to develop and dig deep into the rawness of a character that you can't do in a, 2-hour feature film. So the fact that you're able to do that with the scrolls to really dig and pull out that essence, I- it, it's so exciting because I know I think what's going to be able, what I'm excited about the most is everybody relates to those scrolls and those words in the way that they connect to them by their personal experiences.
Hmm.
And so to watch it happen to a character and it'll kind of take us all back to where I was when I remembered the importance of I'm nature's greatest miracle,
Yeah.
or I know where dry desert ends, green grass grows. So these little key phrases that to everybody they stick out. And what I think is most exciting is just like the squirrels, the revisits ability, as in like you can go back, and we've all experienced this where you'll be reading the scrolls, and the sentence that you've read over and over just because you were reading it, it was like, oh, that's a really cool one. The one about this or the one about that. Yeah, that's great. But then all of a sudden, it's later in your life, things have happened, priorities have changed, the things that you care about have changed, values, character you've developed as a person, and you read that same sentence again, and all of a sudden you start crying, or something happens because that particular phrase changes entirely. So that's what makes it so fun to read the scrolls over and over and over again, even though you know what's coming, even though you know the words that are coming, it hits you differently. And I feel like the show will be the same way, where you'll see an episode and by the way, the way that you write, I'm so excited because I know it's gonna be great. And so when you might watch an episode and go, oh yeah, I remember when I first learned that, and there's one point of relatability and connection, but
Hmm.
then maybe life has changed and you rewatch it and it's a whole different way of looking at the episode because you understand more and differently. So that's so cool that you can do that.
There's actually a legal term, not legal, medical, scientific term. It's called intrinsic language.
Yes.
Intrinsic language has unlimited applications, unlimited interpretations. And the scrolls come to you. You don't have to go to them. So many books you read, it's like a new nomenclature. You got to learn it to be able to read it and understand it. The scrolls, as you are saying, come to you. Every time you read them, there's it's like, where was that before?
Yeah.
I've never heard that before. And we're hoping, oh, you've nailed it so perfectly, that if we can have situations open up around some of those statements, we might we might read them differently. We might see them differently. We might apply them in other areas of our life that are unlike the way the character did in the show, but we can see how it can work if it's actually applied and have them come alive. When these principles can come alive, because you and I both know we've never needed them more than we need them now.
Yeah.
We just desperately need them. Yes.
Wow. That is so exciting. Oh man. I wanted to ask you a little bit about uh your your life and you yourself from what I read from Today Beginning to Life and how the scrolls have impacted you. So maybe can I wind back the clocks a little bit and inquire about some of the things I read from your book?
Oh, sure. Sure.
So, okay, so first of all, again, if you guys are curious, if you guys want to check it out, if you guys want to find the book, we'll put the links to all the things down below in the description, so you guys can just scroll down and tap. It'll get you the link to be able to get to either Og Mandino's book, the website, and or thank you, love you. My wife brought me some coffee here. Um, the and then of course your book that people can go find on Amazon. Um, so just let me just start there so that way people can know what as we talk about. So I was only able to get through Today Beginning a New Life as I was
Mhm.
moving, which
That's a
I mean,
task.
honest, it was so intense. There was so much stuff to happen. So um, I'll let you kind of tell us the full story, but let's just take from you kind of alluded to this a little bit before,
Mm.
and when you were talking about you had this mentality that was kind of materialistic, if you will. You talked about your Rolex and the cars that you were driving and the things that you had at a certain time in your life, and you had what would be considered the dream life, right? Your kids, you had 7 kiddos, your wife Ramona, who you speak so highly of. In my head, half of what I got from your book was, oh, I want to love my wife like that. and 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 so you have your dream home, and then the economy just collapses. Can you walk us through kind of what that was like, and what it led to, and what changed you? I know you talk about it in your book, but I just wanted to ask you, looking back now, how you look back at those days.
Well, first of all, I look back deeply grateful for the experience. Now, let's be clear, I don't want to experience it again.
Yeah.
I learned all the lessons I needed to. But it
fair
was
fair
one of
enough.
the things that happened to our family. I grew up in a very modest home, and I always wanted more and more of everything, right? And start out in business in the financial services business. Um, was a Royal Blue producer with Penn Mutual in the first 2 years, which is their top group. I'm 23 years old. I've got a $150,000 a year income and never looked back. That was 1990, 1977. Um,
So $150,000 was a
1977
lot of money back
was
then.
money, yeah. And I drove Ramona up to a place on Mount Helix in La Mesa. And I said, Mesa, California. And I said, we're going to own that home. Because this is how I think, right? And so I went back and started doing the work. And a friend of mine who knew I liked that home called me one day and said, do you know that house is for sale? I said, I didn't. I'd been up there in a little while. So I drove up and there was no sign. So I knocked on the door and the gentleman answered the door. And I said, was your home for sale? He says, yeah, but we took it off the market because nobody bought it. And I said, I want to buy it. So we sat down, we worked out the details, and we bought the home. And it was our dream home. And I think about those days, and you have to kind of laugh because I wore a Rolex watch. Now, if anybody wears one, it's okay. They are a great watch, but I didn't wear it because it was a great watch. I wore it like this, Andres. How you doing, everybody?
Wow.
Did you see it? It's
Yes.
coming back. I'm having a great
Va-
day. You having a great day?
Vanna White, very Vanna White-ish, who you met, but
Oh my!
also very Vanna White.
I remember coming down off the mountain. I wrote about this in the book, and I come down to the stoplight, signal light, and I'm in my new Mercedes, of course, and I forgot my watch. Now I can go to the meeting and be on time, or I can go back and get my watch and be late. I went back got my watch. Now, climbing out of the house, you got this gigantic double doors, mahogany doors, and a porte cochere, and the car pulls up, and it's a Ford. They're picking me up to go to a meeting. I'm thinking, how are people going to know I have a Mercedes and I have a Ferrari? And
Wow.
it's like, it's out of control. What I was trying to do is fill my empty soul with things. And we just went through a season of that in our own country, didn't we?
Yes.
Had apartment units, 500 doors. I mean, I controlled every facet from property development to the construction company I owned, the management company, the real estate company, everything. So it was really a wonderful business. And then the 1986 tax reform passed, which started taking out some of the value in depreciation, accelerated appreciation, et cetera, started putting a bite in the tax benefits of owning real estate. It's a key piece because you never know when it's going to happen. Like the recession that started last June. Yes, the recession
Yeah.
that started last June.
Yeah.
The teeth started biting into this, and by 1989, the world was coming to an end. We were building our last apartment building, 5.5 million, sold it for 5.4 million. 2 or 3 years later, the second trustee we carried back for $1 million was defaulted on because the property had dropped below the value of the first trustee because
Oh boy.
apartments are driven by vacancy. And as construction stops, a lot of the laborers live in apartments. And so they start going to another part of the country to live. It just collapsed. It was like, Andres, it was like water going through my fingers. I mean, you could not stop it. And it was end of December 1989. We owed $1 million because I was the corporate guarantor of all the debt. And I had gone through it believing somehow in my wisdom I could stop the bleeding. Couldn't stop it. Fortunately, we sold the house. Two houses sold on my helix. Mine and the person who bought mine. That was like it. And I had to reduce it like 30% in value to get it sold. And then I gave the equity that was left to the creditors.
Yeah,
And
so you could pay off the debt.
we came up here to Utah because we'd been producing films on the side. I mean, it wasn't all just about stuff. I produced a film called Reach Out on Teenage Drinking and Driving that was in 40,000 schools. Can't You See Me,
Wow.
an acquaintance rape that was in a lot of colleges. Come In From the Storm on child abuse prevention that was in every U.S. military base school, DoD school system, and family services unit worldwide, and in schools in Canada and United States, New Zealand, and Australia, about 30,000 schools. Um, this was kind of a hobby of mine because I wanted to do something good, and I had the money to do it, and it was just a wonderful experience. Um, Now the
Wow.
world falls apart, and I go, you know, okay. We did all of the production in Utah. It's a right to work state. It's relatively affordable. Why don't we just move up there and go in the film business? So we, we left the real estate business. We came up here to Utah, and I was marketing those three films, and I wrote four feature film scripts. First 2 years, 6 months apiece. I was doing writing, studying, Truby story structure, everything, honing the skill set. And 2 years in, the movies that come in from the Storm movie on child abuse was primarily being sold in California
Wow.
because they had a great child abuse prevention program in California. And Waters bill was passed and stopped the funding. Sales stopped almost overnight, and we had gone through everything that was valuable that we had sold to try to just stay alive. And I got $1 million in debt.
Oh my
And I'm sending financial statements with a $50 check to all those creditors. If you can find more, I'll send it to you. And they all were gracious. It was amazing because they knew I could file bankruptcy and they'd lose out. But hang in here with me. I'll figure this out, right? Um, when it stopped,
Mm.
it got very, very traumatic. I wrote about this in the book, The Really Dark Night.
Yeah. Yeah.
My
And
life insurance policy started to get really appealing to release my family of this burden. And I'll tell you what happened the next morning. That night, uh, I had a memory of Ramona running the St. George Marathon. And when she got done, I was standing at the chain link fence waiting to catch her attention. And she's got her hands on her knees. That terracotta emblem is dangling. And she's just exhausted. And she looks up and she started crying. And she came over and she put her fingers through the chain link fence. And we just held each other. And I said, this has got to be kind of what it feels like when one of us dies and waiting for the other one, we finally get to them. Just, it was one of those precious. I remember that. That kept me alive that night. The next morning, I was
that
angry.
that was hello, off schedule moment. Wanted to tell you about Southwestern Real Estate. They're 99% drama free. Only 99, not 99.9. So it's a bit spicy. Kind of like this episode. Anyway, they will learn you to kick ass at real estate. So make sure you guys click the link below, get in touch with them. Okay, back to work. Bye. What up, everyone? Off schedule story, really quick. The average agent at Cardinal Cedar Benefits earns about 5K per week. It's pretty badass. So, on that note, that was a dark moment in the book and in your life. And just I wanted to ask you a little bit about just how do you reflect on that even now? Like I know you told the story about Ramona, but I mean, how like the world would have been lesser, had you had cash in that policy as you put it. And what advice would you give to someone who maybe is in a similar situation where they feel like, hey, this can't go on anymore? What can they hold on to? What would you say to them?
Well, take a look at your life. Hopefully, there's something like that. I'm really blessed. We just celebrated our 48th wedding anniversary, and we're still like teenagers. It's just awesome. Greatest gift in my life is her, other than my faith and in my Lord and Savior. But in that moment, I got very real. I'll share with you what I said because I found out something interesting. I long to cry to the God of my youth, but the God of my youth will not hear my cry. I must change my God or change my cry. You can guess which one needed to change.
Hmm.
My cry. I began that day. It's like I was so angry, and it's like God said, okay, now we can go to work. I got your
Wow.
attention. and
Finally.
and to learn the principles of actually creating something. How does it work? That's all built into our practicum now so that we can help people understand getting their habits in alignment. And then how do you actually create something? Boy, that lesson was thorough. It was like 7 more years of going through those processes to learn those principles. But at the end, that learning process, as thorough as it was, and God has a way of doing things really thoroughly. What a great gift. The lives I've been able to bless by sharing those principles and the joy that comes from watching them apply them and create. It's just amazing. Those dark nights, for anybody who's watching, well, I'll just put it this way. I had a dream about almost 2 years now. There was a man standing on a cliff ready to jump. Dark black jacket, trench coat, dark hair. And I felt impressed to walk out onto the ledge and have a conversation. So I walked out. We started having a conversation. He turned and we walked away. I woke up. I said, what was that? Really strong impression. Like when you're writing, you get that flow. I had a little flow for
Hmm.
a moment. It was the time is not far off when tens of thousands of people will be tested beyond their ability to withstand. And I said, Lord, you promised you wouldn't do that. I said, in righteousness, the world's just not righteous. It's okay. And then he said something that was so profound. The only people who will have the credibility to walk out on that ledge is somebody who has stood there themselves.
Mm.
So if there's anybody watching this who feels like they're standing there themselves, you're being thoroughly prepared. You might ask instead of why me, what am I being prepared for? Because sometimes God loves us enough to test us to the edge. Because then you've got credibility to walk out there and help somebody else walk away. So if you're
Hmm.
there, take courage. You're in a really precious place to learn amazing lessons if you'll surrender to and submit to the lesson. That's
Mm.
what I would say to someone who feels like they're there. Yeah, wow,
Yeah.
what a great moment. Great moment. Retrospectively, generally, it's not always
Yeah.
great in the moment. Retrospect.
No.
There'll be a day that when you're serving, so you're listening to someone, and a question comes to your heart that nobody's thought to ask, or you hear something nobody else has heard because of that moment you went through, and you ask that question, and that person just, finally, somebody understands where I am. And you feel their walls come down and their energy and cooperation flood out. And you feel that fill your soul. And the very strings of your heart are plucked. And you go, wow, grateful for that moment to be in this moment with another human being. And then it's repeated over and over and over and over again. Yeah, if you're there in that dark space, whew, just step back
Wow.
and what can I learn? Because I want to be prepared. I don't want to do this twice. I just want to be prepared.
Yeah. Wow. That was. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. That's a tough moment, but like you said, The people who've been there are the ones that can help the most pull out. You know, I always said, because my faith came to me after my summer knocking on doors, selling books door to door,
Mhm.
and that's when it appeared to me. And in my head, I always just thought like God always puts you in a situation that's so intense that the only way out is a miracle or through His grace.
Mhm.
So that's why it's so intense. So that way, when you survive it and you come out on the other side and you can look back, you go, "Oh, I see. I couldn't have done that. The
Mhm.
world couldn't have done that. There's only one real tangible way. Whether you choose to believe that or not, that's I'm not here to preach or on people who might be listening, and but for me, that's how I chose to look at it, and it's your choice. That's why it's called belief, right? Otherwise, if it was provable, it'd be logic, and then that's a whole different conversation. But to me, I look back in moments that were really, really tough in my life, and I go, the only way that we survive that is through some divine intervention, right? For me, that's my God. For other people, it could be the universe, whatever they believe in. But that's to
Well,
me, that's why I think about.
this is
Yeah,
interesting. The tools. You got Phil Stutz and Barry Michaels are both atheists. And when they're teaching these principles to their patients and helping them get into action, they talk about something miraculous that happens, that unseen power we talked about earlier.
yeah,
And the only way they could describe it is you're in alignment with a force that orders the planets.
yeah.
Kind of a practical way of saying God, okay.
God, yeah,
No, you want to find a higher power, live in this kind of a space, getting inspiration, download, serving, listening. There's a partnership with something. I found it's not offended. God is not offended if you give him a different name.
yeah,
But embracing that, bringing that to your life, being a partner in life with the power that created the universe, I mean, that's kind of a cool deal.
yeah. It's a lot of power in that. There's a lot of power in accepting that as well. Um, wow. Thank you for sharing all of that. That was really inspirational. I know that's your favorite word. It was really inspiring. Uh, and thank you for inspiring. Um, I wanted to also follow up and ask you a little bit about your life after. So obviously, we know things changed. You start uh, getting some success in film and different things. But I wanted to ask you specifically about a moment. What was it like meeting Betty, Og's widow, and what can you walk us through like that interaction and
Mhm.
what she is now in your life and or what how you reflect on your relationship with her and kind of from your perspective, you know, getting introduced to Og and in your life and the scrolls and her and that aspect of it.
We're talking next week. I'm excited to be back with her again. It's been a little while since we visited. Um, a producer came to town looking for a writer for the book The Christ Commission, which was the only book Og really ever wanted to write. Betty said that when he finally got to writing, he had all these yellow notebooks that had almost were so crisp the pages would break, stacked up in boxes when he wrote that book. Well, I was hired to write that feature film script. I finished it and dated it and didn't realize I dated it and it was Betty's birthday.
Hmm.
And I just had this inspired moment. I need to fly down to Scottsdale and present it to her personally. So we went to dinner and we just connected. That's why in 2000 in January, the world didn't come to an end with Y2K, right? And I'm shooting some commercials for CNBC in New York. And we're going to the Lion King that night, stand in the cancellation line to see if we can get in. We all got in, which is great. And Betty calls me and says, Dave, the rights to The Greatest Salesman are not being renewed. And you're the first person I wanted to call. Would you be interested? Is this a rhetorical question, Betty? This book changed my life. So we
Please.
worked out the details with her attorney in New York, my attorney in California, the publisher in Florida. I came back and left the film business, and we started the Og Mandino Leadership Institute and began the process of building training programs and coaching around the principles and my own life experiences in preparation for a movie being made. When this
Whoa.
is big, everybody's gonna go, "Wow, overnight success." I go, "Yeah, 23-year overnight success." But
Yeah.
that's
That's
how I met Betty. And Betty's so fun. She she's so real. She knew Og.
yeah.
She knows Og. She was married to Og. So, you get to hear all the stories because Og was human too. And
Yeah.
frankly, I find that relieving that he was human and she's human. She's just a sweetheart. She's a great, great person.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so fun. Do you think that after getting to know her and being friends with her for so long and hearing so much about Og, do you think that by the time that Og passed that he knew the impact that like the real, I mean, because everybody can see 25 million copies sold, 25 different languages, right? All that, like that looks and sounds on paper like impact, but it goes much, much deeper than just that, right? There's so much more under the surface of just what one scroll could do to someone, even if they didn't buy that copy. But do you think he was aware in the end of what how that it changed the world essentially, the book?
Og was always so humble.
Yeah, I
Just
can imagine.
humble. He had a hard time promoting the book from the stage. So you can imagine how he was viewing success. He just got his house paid off and enjoyed being in Vermont or when he not Vermont, in New Hampshire when he could be. Um, and Betty was there with him and they're living everyday life.
Yeah.
It's kind of crude, but I call it the burps and farts of life. I mean, when you're just living real life, you don't see it the way everybody else sees it because there's a lot of hero worship. When you got multi-million-dollar selling books and you're in demand as a speaker, and he only spoke like twice a month, it was $25,000 each back then because he just wanted to have boundaries in his life. He wanted to continue writing and being with his family, etc. And you're living all of the real life. It's hard to step back and really see it.
Mm,
I think when he passed, which was very untimely, by the way, very untimely, from an accident. Um, I think it's after that you could start to see, oh my goodness, this is one of the most beloved authors of all time. It's
yeah.
50, $60 million in books, 25 million in just The Greatest Salesman. Huge impact. And Og was so humble. He got letters all the time from people. I don't know if anybody's ever shared this, but he replied to every single letter on his IBM Selectric typewriter. He hand typed a letter back to every single person who ever sent him a letter. I've seen some of those letters. I mean, he just lived in that space.
Wow.
What I would say is he never drank the Kool Aid.
Mm,
Isn't that a fun way to live? He didn't have a guru bone in his body. He never drank his own Kool Aid. That would be a great prescription to give to the world today, where everybody wants
yeah.
to be an influencer. They all want to be a guru. They all want to be well known. How about if we just love and change lives and leave everybody better than we found them? And the cream rises to the top, not because we're forcing it with social media statistics. It just does because it's supposed to be there. That was Og.
Mm, wow.
And that's heavy.
Wow, that's so cool. I thank you for sharing that because there's so much we've talked about this already in passing on this episode, but just the if you could just have everyone just read the books, the scrolls, even just the scrolls, just once. I have a friend who I showed the scrolls to, and now she reads them every day. Like it's just a thing that's part of her daily routine. I mean, there's people who you just say, hey, just read this part, or often I'll be talking to my wife about something, and I'll go, hold on, he said it better. I'm essentially trying to say, like, I will value my, I would multiply my value 100-fold, or we're talking about something of the scrolls, and I go, actually, this is the quote. It's better said in these words. So the impact that he's continuing to have by that overnight haul of 12 hours of writing and that enlightened
Mhm.
typing, it's continuing to change the world, and it's and you I I'm excited that the legacy is in your hands, the legacy of what the book can do, and the next level of impact that it can have is being led by you, because knowing your struggle and knowing your life, from what I got to know in your book and from what Og's principles are and how interlaced and interwoven they are, I'm excited for the future of that legacy. So thank you for doing what you're doing. Uh, it's amazing. One more thing I wanted to ask you about, and we could keep chatting as this has been a great, wonderful conversation too. But about that Mahomes jersey, right behind you, I couldn't not ask. I mean, it's just so prominently sitting there, and it's so current, and relevant right now because the Chiefs just won again, and I was cheered for them because of you, because we had talked before the Super Bowl. And I'm like, oh, I'm going for the Chiefs this time. So can you tell me the story behind that jersey?
Happy to. June Jones, who was the coach at SMU in Dallas, asked me to come and speak to the team. And every year he does a special event where he brings inner city school children to the stadium for a day of truth and principle. And even though it's got a little bit of a religious tone to it, the city still pays for the busing of all those children because the impact since he started doing that and the number of kids to graduate, the drop in crime, etc. I mean, you've got hundreds and hundreds of sixth graders from an inner city school, and I was there on that Saturday. Not an incident. Not an incident. When I got there that morning, because I came a few days earlier, I was to speak on Monday, Lee Steinberg was there. Now, I'd had a chance to visit with Lee 3 months earlier, and we did a habit finder assessment, which we'll want to probably talk about for a minute later. But he
Yeah.
had done it 3 months later, and I got to meet him. And there he is. I said, Lee, what are you doing here? And he says, well, I'm June Jones's agent. I went, oh, that's awesome. So we spent the day serving together. And then we went to June's house that night for a party. And we got there about an hour before everybody else showed up. And Lee and June and I are sitting out on the back deck by the swimming pool, just talking. And Lee was sharing as public, so I can share it with you. He'd lost his certification as an agent, had a public intoxication charge at Steve Young's Hall of Fame induction, and he created some problems. And as a result, he'd gone bankrupt, been through a divorce. He just finished his detox and sobriety and was in a halfway house. And in the book, the number one agent was getting ready to come out. All this was happening. And I get this phone call that I didn't take initially. Then I realized I needed to. I so excused myself. And it was a dear friend of mine who had been struggling with cancer, a big tumor on the side of her neck that had been shrinking, but all of a sudden was back with aggression. She said, it's back. I was, oh, I'm so sorry. She says, oh, don't worry. This is literally what she said. I win either way. If I live in Jesus. If I die, I get to live with him. So I win either way. And then we ended the phone call. It was sobering nonetheless. I went back and sat down, and June could discern something. She said, you okay, Dave? So I shared that story with him. And we had a really precious conversation between the three of us. And I felt a very strong impression. Dave, you're supposed to raise the money to put Lee back in practice. And I'm thinking, oh my, it's Lee Steinberg.
Yeah.
But I trust those impressions. So I said, Lee, I'll just tell you what just came to me. And we talked about it. I came home and visited his attorney, which was really an awful experience. I wrecked my car coming out of the garage. I hit one of those cement pillars. I was so frustrated coming out of there, $2,500 worth of damage to the car. Anyway, put together a team, including Sean Reyes, who's now the Attorney General of the state of Utah, was my attorney. And they went to the same school. And he had listened to Lee lecture when he was at the school as a student, much younger than Lee. So fast friendship. We all got together, raised the money, negotiated through all of the cobwebs that are always there, skeletons in the closet, from that kind of a collapse of a business. Got the money together and got him in practice. First 4 years were a little sparse terms of recruiting. But the fourth year, Patrick Mahomes was attracted to Lee. Lee is a really cool person. 180 IQ, which doesn't you don't repeat anything with Lee. You don't need to, um, but absolutely wants his athletes giving back to their high school, their college, to their community. He wants them having businesses in place before they retire that will support them, saving their money, living within their means. It's just crazy what he does. Well, that was perfect for Matt, for Patrick. The two of them just met like this and were just like perfect match. So he signs up and second year in wins the Super Bowl. And all of us got one of these. It's
Wow.
you can see one similar to this online, but you won't get this one. Signed by Patrick, a gift to all of us. And then last year, the company came in and bought out all the investors, and everybody's been made whole, and it's wonderful. Um,
Wow.
but I keep that there. Sure, it's cool. It's signed by Patrick. Really is. It's a gift from all. That's all wonderful. But the primary reason I keep that there, it's with me every day. And it's reminding me that in everything I do to listen. And when you get an inspired idea, to act on it as if it's an urgent assignment. Because the things that have happened in my life from following that one inspiration, unbelievable. Don't want to miss them. Nobody wants to miss these. And people are getting them all the time. And they're talking themselves out of it because they've got unhealthy habits of thinking that say, who are you? You can't do that.
Mm.
Get it? We talk ourselves out of it. Talk ourselves out of it. Part of my mission is helping people hear it, act on it, because you can change your life just following inspired ideas.
That's right.
Thanks for asking.
Instead of why me, why not me? Why why wouldn't it be you? You got it.
I got the inspiration. It must be. So here we go. Let's go make it happen.
And you talked about habits, and I did want to ask you about the habit finder. Can you talk to me a little bit more about the inspiration behind that and how you got, how you developed the habit finder, where did it start, what's it up to?
Oh yeah. It's called axiological mathematics. Uses Cantor's transfinite calculus to measure a person's habits of thinking. If you think of the brain, got the brainstem, the diencephalon, the limbic brain, and the cortex, where we have consciousness. Thought processes come up out of that into the cortex. What are they? Because those thought processes impact how we feel, our emotions. Joe Dispenza calls it memorized emotions, being our personality, our behavior, our actions, our results. And we focus too much on personality, managing personalities, trying to change behavior, trying to get people to act differently. We say, why don't we just go back to the headwaters? Because we can now measure habits of thinking. And let's work on those. And let's help someone become the very best version of themselves. And then let's manage that. I went looking for this because as I was studying Og's principles, and the book's all about habits, right? It's about having good habits. And I'll become their slaves, right?
Yep.
Bad habits are the unlocked door to failure. It's all about habits. And what habits do we have that are supporting or sabotaging our behavior, our actions, even our personality? We're not locked into anything. And neuroscience is now supporting this completely. That even epigenetics, Andres, which is really a cool concept, that means traits passed down through our DNA can be changed. We become conscious. We would normally choose this. Instead, we choose that. And we choose it and choose it and choose it. And we create a new neural pathway in our brain. And the brain synaptically prunes off the bad habit. We have a new habit of thinking. We have the capacity to do that as a human being. It takes some work. You got to get really in the trenches with this to make it happen. But I choose to work at that level because Og's principles are at that level.
What up, ponies? I've scheduled a story really quick. I wanted to shout out Quentin Roberts' episode number 140. In it, he talks about how he built such a fantastic culture at the company cardinal senior benefits. If you want more information on that, click the link below or go check out that episode. Back to work. Knock, knock. Last off schedule story. Guys, I want to tell you about my good friend Alex Black. I used to work over at Enlight Energy, and it was a pleasure working with him and that entire company. Definitely would recommend you guys check out what that opportunity is. It was a great way to make money, and it was one of the most rewarding experiences I had to help people take ownership of their power. It's pretty cool. So, on that note, let's finish up this episode. Bye.
So we wanted to find a tool that would match it. We found it. We spent, I don't know, $2 million and 250,000 participants to perfect it. But it's scary accurate. And a doctoral dissertation was just finished. Dr. Meg Weinkoff just finished her dissertation on using the habit finder to help people who want to be transformational leaders. What's getting in the way? What's making it harder than it needs to be? What could support you in being a transformational leader, which is the new trend in leadership? We're actually starting to care about people again, which is really an awesome thing.
Yeah.
And that was just finished. So we're just so dang excited that we have that tool. And I might mention for anybody who's got an organization, we take an organization, have everybody take the assessment. Then we crunch all that data into one report. And it tells us the places where everyone has thought processes in common. We know the risks associated with that. It's like, well, do you ever have any problems with this? Yeah, how do you know that? Well, 97% of your people think like this. And then we're able to create some really short, brief, high return training for an organization to target into the pieces. Our today's economics, we can't spend money on the latest flavor training. We need to get to the real issues. So anybody that wants to really get to the thought process that drive everything else, we can get there. And we've got the principles to shift them. It's awesome. It's an exciting place to live.
We're all slave to our habits, good or bad. That's just I'm just glad that that's habits is such a, and especially because it's been a buzzword. I think lately, atomic habits and habit, but this is something that has been developed by you for years. Like you were ahead of this curve with Og. Og. The first, what is it? 2 pages of the scrolls start with habits. Today I begin a new life, shed my own skin, and eventually he talks about, if since it's a good habit, then I'm its slave, right? And when it becomes a pleasure to perform, so on and so forth, all that. That's the foundation, base foundation. I mean, if you don't have that, stop reading the others. I mean, don't stop reading the other scrolls, but that's like the biggest thing to notice is all this stuff is fun, and all these new programs and these new commitments and the new year trends and all this stuff. Yeah, that's all fine and dandy. And I started a gym membership and all that stuff. But if the habits, especially the bad habits that you have, aren't cleared, aren't, shifted, changed, replaced, it's an uphill battle the whole time versus getting up to the plateau and cruise control of habits.
Yeah. And if we don't start here, nothing changes. It's like self-improvement is change my circumstances. Well, you want to change your circumstances, you have to change yourself. Yeah. What I just described is self-improvement. I choose to think differently, and I keep doing it till I create a new habit. That's self-improvement. Seminars, trainings, books, all they do is help prepare us to raise our awareness so we make different decisions. If we're not focused here, nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
And I think we're finally getting to that point as a society. We're so excited that people are going, I get it. I've tried everything else. It didn't work. Okay, then let's work on the thing that matters most. Knowing that you are not broken. These habits are not you. Evidenced by the fact you, the observer, metacognitive you, can choose differently. Let's take the one thing that separates us from all other living creatures, the ability to reflect on our own thinking. Let's actually apply that, reflect on it, and shift it. Or if it's a healthy one, magnify it.
Yeah.
Why not?
Enhance it. Yeah. Wow. That is amazing. I love that. If I think I think the last bit of conversation I wanted to have with you is just how can we work together? How can the Ponytails podcast work with you guys and help the projects that you have going on, particularly the show that's going on? What can we do to help if people are listening and going, all right, how do I get involved? How can I do this? What can people do to find you? How can they? What are some tangible ways, whether that be monetarily or otherwise, that
Mhm.
people can do to support and really help out um,
A
going
couple
forward?
of things. Um, Keep listening to this podcast. And
Thanks.
I fell in love with you immediately. You've dedicated your life to the very thing I've dedicated my life to. It's important that we continue to get this message out to people, that it doesn't die. Og Mandino passed away in 1996. It's been a while. And that we need to keep this front of mind just to keep people in this process. We get lost very easily in this crazy world we live in. So that's one. Two, you and I have talked about maybe doing something even more pointed. So I love your energy. And we'll explore that more privately and offline to explore what can be done to drive this even a little bit more. We'd love the support of your community as this series comes out.
Hmm.
Make sure you watch it and pass it on to your friends. And because I think the visual is going to help people, as you said earlier, get more attracted to the written word. It's going to come alive for them. They're going to say, oh my goodness, that's how I want to live. That's how I want to make my decisions. That just feels so right. So to support in that piece is critical. If there's anybody here that wants to be a part of this first group that does the torch, um, I'm going to run the risk of giving you my email address, dave@ogmandino.com. Send me a private message and say, I'd love to visit with your folks on this. Share with me a little bit your history with the scrolls and what they mean to you. And I'll get back to you personally. This is
Hmm.
top priority right now to finish up this little round so that we can get the torch made, so that we can begin the crowdfunding, so that we can begin the series. Um, that would probably be the last thing. So thanks for asking.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's great about this is, there's projects that are out there. There's people who are crowdfunding for uh an action movie about whatever, but this is something where it's like your the value that this can bring to the world, the impact that this can have going forward, um, especially knowing that it's being driven and produced. I mean, it's being written by you, it's being produced by Angel Studios, which, given the success of The Chosen, they have a pretty solid track record just on that, just to show that they can definitely make an impact. And the fact that this is a project that they picked up kind of speaks volumes to the potential, not just the potential, but with the true power it's already having. So, if you guys, we'll put, like I said, we'll put your email, we'll put all those links below. Just go ahead and check it out, and just let us know if you have questions. We can always, again, you can message Dave or reach out to us, and we can connect you if for some reason um, you didn't catch the email, for sure. So, and on that note, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Dave, for being on here, for allowing us to pick your brain a little bit about Og and about your life and how it's all connected. Such a cool way to spend my time on a Friday morning. So, thanks so much for being on here.
Likewise. Thank you, Andres.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and for sure, we'll stay in touch. I know you and I will keep in touch going forward with a variety of things that we had talked about, like you said. Um, thank you, everyone, for listening. I really appreciate it, and make sure you guys catch us. This has been season 8 finale, actually. So we're wrapping up season 8 with Dave Blanchard. Keep an eye out for the next season. We will be starting out in a few weeks, and thank you for listening, everyone. Catch you on the next one. Bye.